Prior to Reverend Terry's introduction, I'd never heard of the celebration of Imbolc. Ancients took this time between the winter solstice and the spring equinox to honor the coming of the light and to prepare the soil for planting. This time was closely tied to the livestock breeding season. February 1st is halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It was regarded as a day of beginning and birth. While unaware of the practice of Imbolc, it was a familiar concept to me. I was raised in a rural part of Northern California, surrounded by small farms and ranches. I lived on a 10-acre prune farm, which they have now changed to plums. My parents were both city raised, so they had a lot to learn about how to prepare and nourish the soil, in addition to how to plant and harvest crops. Farmers would take this in-between time when the fields were dormant and spring was only a promise to optimize soil conditions, protect their future crops and herds, and to fight the unpredictability of nature. This was a time of hope and a time of deep uncertainty. As a young child, I heard plenty of conversations between my parents and neighbors about the current weather pattern and planting cycles. Family farms were lost not because their owners didn't work hard, but because of a miscalculation and a crop failure. The unpredictability of the weather caused major anxiety. Was there going to be a freeze? When do you put out your smudge pots to protect the tender buds from the frost? Smudge pots were containers of oil that were set ablaze on those evenings when a freeze was predicted. The emissions from the pots created an inversion layer that trapped warmth and raised the temperature above freezing. On awakening in the morning, children found their noses lined with black soot and knew right away that there had been a freeze. Probably not too environmentally friendly, right? A farmer's mantra is, and has been, healthy soil means healthy crops. Crops must be planted under the right conditions: warmth of the soil, wetness, weather conditions, the crop you want to grow, and the quality of the seed all need to be considered. What needs to be added so that the soil conditions are optimized, giving the crops the best chance at survival and the farmer a plentiful harvest? Farming is all about timing. It's about being patient and doing things in the correct order and at the proper pace. Here at UUSM, the last few years have been a time of discernment and focus on congregational health and direction. This has been our in-between time, our Imbolc. This next year will be a time of change and growth. This will be a hopeful time and a time of deep uncertainty. Following the service today, many of us will join in our next community conversation. Let me share some of my thoughts as we enter in this discussion on our new beginning. Are the growing conditions optimal for UUSM? What needs to be added or strengthened to produce healthy outcomes? What important work is still undone, preventing us from undergoing a meaningful change? What is falling through the cracks? What voices are underrepresented? What more can we learn and do during this time of preparation? As we move forward in creating the congregation we wish to become, what lessons can we learn from Imbolc, from the ancients and the farmers? Carolyn Miller, in her poem Imbolc, points the way in creating new beginnings. I am the time to honor your unique gifts for their true worth and to protect and nurture your creative self as you would a child. I am the deep longing of the spirit which refuses to be consumed by a narrative of fear and chooses instead to place itself vivaciously on the side of love.
A cold is trying to catch me, so I'm wearing a mask when I'm too close to you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Kathy, for your reflection on Imbolc, a celebration of the midpoint between Yule and Ostera, winter and spring. Most of us have lost knowledge of the world's rhythms, the nature's rhythms that you so wonderfully described for us this morning. And you remind us that growing things is complicated. Soil conditions, weather, judgment about the right time to plant, when and where to plant, which crops are cooperative with which crops, and which may not be in proximity to the others. There are so many factors to measure, nurture, or mitigate. In nature, a failure to live fully in between, attentively and with intention, can cause crops to utterly fail. Big T truth is big T truth, and what is true is often echoed in multiple ways, big and small, even in our day-to-day lives. The in-between, the attention to gestation, nurturing of joyful expectation, and preparation that's essential to healthy new life on the farm or in our living as individuals or organizations. Let's say this, we are not as attentive as farmers who pay homage, others who pay homage and attention to these rhythms. It's not that we don't recognize in-between times, it's more like we tend to see them as simply passages to get through or things to push through as fast as we can versus places to be. Metaphorical winter is often seen as something to be endured versus the womb of becoming. Imbolc can be translated in the belly of the mother. This congregation is amazing. I love you. You've pulled off amazing things and still do. You have every reason to be proud of so much that's been accomplished the last few years, even before Tobis and I came along. There have been staff transitions that required nearly emergency interventions and a great deal of investment by a few. The sanctuary is beautiful. Your finances are healthy. You are a growing community. And I think we still recognize that we're in an in-between season. And I applaud those who fully engaged in the community conversations and invested themselves in looking ahead toward a new season, a new minister, and a moment when we can turn our energy towards what's next. The transition team has asked us as a congregation, and if you're an individual, you can think of this for yourself. Who, as a community, have we been? What are our strongest values? What do we want to be beyond today? Change is a constant in the universe. We are always becoming. We've heard yearnings for some new things, for some revitalized things, larger and new programs. There's a yearning for more social justice and so much more. There is so much in the belly, so to speak. There is an expectation, but gestation is not a promise. There are many months of preparation that go into the healthy birth of anything. Today we read together in the introduction our covenant of right relations. Building community is an ongoing spiritual practice, inviting the spirit of love into our interactions. We each work to develop skills and promote practices that strengthen our bonds of relationships. Through this practice, we realize the interconnected network of mutuality of beloved community. Our theme this month is inclusion, but it's not just any inclusion for the sake of inclusion, but an inclusion that includes this value of mutuality in beloved community. We want people to come and feel a part, not a spectator, not attending a show, but being a part of all that we are. We want it to be a place where people can show their true colors and be welcome, where we can share ourselves, our experiences, and find a welcoming space. People come the first time entering as strangers, but we hope to make friends and perhaps find new leaders for each new season. One of the things we have to consider together is whether we make that a gentle, easy thing or a very hard thing to accomplish. If there are places where it's hard to engage in beloved community, we should think about that. And what this section of the covenant says to me is that we want to care about building relationships, that this is foundational. In mutuality, we hope to form a group that allows us to both support and lean on one another in season. Secondly, as individuals or community, if we claim to be acting in love, which is by nature open-handed, love is open-handed, then how we do things together is just as important as doing anything at all. For example, how well do we share power? How well do we share information? And if these things were easy, we would not need any practice, tools, or skill development. But they're hard. In communities, an interim ministry is often 2 full years. And when we set big goals for developmental change like you're doing, it's usually a stretch to do more than 1 goal a year. It's a slow, hopefully purposeful, well thought out thing. And how well it goes depends on how well the soils be prepared, how receptive it is, and who is helping, and what the systems are to support what we're trying to do. So how do we continue to prepare for what could be so that we don't walk in a circle back to where we started and fail to nurture the soil of community, thinking the old stuff just fine? We can't, as individuals or communities, simply plant a seed in the old soil and cross our fingers for a bumper crop. Not how it works. I mean, we can, but... So my question today is, if we want to realize our visions, how do we set more people up for success, for integral parts, big or small, in community? So that it's easy to help. So it's easy to nurture skills, practices, to build bonds. So it's easy to move those who want to, from a first visit to a share in what we build together. A share that holds meaning for them. So let me quote Kathy. Here at UUSM, the last few years have been a time of discernment and focus on congregational health and direction. Next year will be a time of growth and change. Are we ready? As we move forward in creating congregation we wish to become, what lessons can we apply from Imbolc, from the ancients, from the farmers? Are the growing conditions optimal now? What needs to be added or strengthened to produce healthy outcomes? What important work is still undone, preventing us from undergoing meaningful change? And what more can we learn and do during this time of preparation and planting? And these are questions we all need to ask and answer and discern. Hear this poem, Imbolc, by Maria Eid Weaving. I draw a circle in my sacred space to celebrate the festival of growing light. Though the cold chills me and the wet winds keep me hunched in upon myself, there is a stirring within the earth, a stirring deep inside my winter ponderings that comes in the shape of a tiny spark. It is a seed of quickening in the soil. It is the candle flame lit in the darkness. The days quietly lengthen, and my hope rises like the tender green shoots of early spring bulbs. So friends and farmers all, it's your farm. Please join me after worship.